Both my parents were born in Leeds, and as a child I used to visit my maternal grandparents who lived in Sandringham. Before that they lived in Stainburn, and even after they have died, I regularly go there to visit the graves of my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and my great-great-grandparents, who are all buried in Leeds. My father told me he used to live in Chapeltown, and he was there during the war and after the war, and he told me that they used to say about Leeds that you could eat anywhere. The kashrus was on top quality, and the Beis HaMedrash was packed on Sunday with the fathers all learning. This is what Leeds used to be when he was a child, and he used to daven in Leeds Yeshiva, which was in that area near Pottington Park. And he told me, can you see this house over here? This was the Bnei Akiva. This house was the Aguda building. This house was the yeshiva. And he said it was a thriving Yiddish kehillah. And he showed me that there was another shul, which was the Hasidic shul. And then he showed me another shul, the new synagogue, which they especially built for Chazan Solomon Stern, which my grandfather was a choir boy at one time. I think that the yeshiva disintegrated in the mid-60s, and because I know people who actually were there. It was at one time a full-time yeshiva, but then later on it became more an evening yeshiva. And Rabbi Zvulun Gould, who was a Telzer Talmud, he was the Rosh Yeshiva. And my father, as a child, older child, learned by him, and also with Rabbi Safa. They were together in this yeshiva. And he was a big Talmud Chacham. He once apparently went to meet one of the old Lubavitcher Rebbes in Lithuania, and he was chosen to say a pilpul. It's one of the bochrim, top bochrim, to say a pilpul to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. This is Reb Zvulun Gould. I knew there were two phenomenal big Talmidei Chacham leads. And one was saying Dayan Apfel, and one was Rabbi Hillel Modalia. These were two geniuses, and I know that Dayan Apfel came from Hasidic lineage. He was born in Sand in 1909, and when he was 14 years old, he was so brilliant that one of the top Talmidei Chacham there, known as Rabbi Stroll Isser Fruchtlander, he took him under his tutelage. And he learnt with him for a year straight all the intricate halachas in Shulchan Aruch of Choshen Mishpat, which is to do with the mandatory laws, with the commentaries of the Ketzos and the Sivos, for a year straight. And he would learn a whole Friday night with him, not sleeping. And when that rabbi left the town to go back to his hometown of Dubetsk, he took him with him. And by the time he reached 18, he got his first smicha from the Av Beis Din of Peshemishal, whose name was Rabbi Yeshua Widke. That was the first smicha he got. And Dayan Apfel was very proud of the fact of what he said on the smicha. Not only did he know the Shulchan Aruch and the commentaries on that page, but the back commentaries, which is known as the Pischei Teshuva, right at the back, Pri Megadim, that he also knew word per word, and it said that in his smicha. Firstly, he started off after he left Hildesheimer, he became a chazan in Berlin. And then he came to Leeds again as a chazan. But when they saw what Talmud Chacham was, so they appointed him to be a rabbi of the shul. And then he became a dayan in 1947, eventually becoming Av Beis Din in 1968. And he taught many dayanim under him. And even today's incumbent is a Talmud of a Talmud from him. He had the greatest luminaries living at the time. That I come from town Gateshead, and one of the rabbis left Gateshead because it was only a small little village at the time, and he went to the bigger town Leeds to become Rav there, and he's buried there He's buried in Newfoundland, and his name is Rabbi Monsoon, and he's buried there. And he was the rabbi originally in Gateshead, but then he went to a bigger town, which had a lot of Talmidei Chacham in Leeds. And I had Rabbi Deichers over there, and this Rabbi Deichers was buried in the Hilltop Cemetery. He wrote a commentary on the Gemara Yerushalmi. He was a big Talmidei Chacham, and then there was another one, which is buried near my grandfather, and his name was Rabbi Horowitz, and he also was a big Talmidei Chacham. Apparently they had some controversy with each other, but like normal. But they would, and then there was another rabbi also buried in Newfoundland, and his name is Rabbi Antrinsky. And he was Rav of the Hasidic shul, and he also was a big luminary, that I know. And as I said before, that the Beis HaMedrash was packed on Sunday. The problem was they didn't have any new education for the children, and therefore they didn't have what to pass on to the next generation. The fathers were busy working. They didn't have a proper educational system. And that's why, in the end, it just fizzled away. Yeah, Diane Refstein was a very good friend of my father. And before he was in Leeds, I remember him from Sunderland, because he was originally from Sunderland. And he was one of the top boys there in yeshiva, a very studious person as a child and as a bocher, always learning. So much so that the Babitcher Rebbe had assigned to him a big Talmid Chacham in New York to learn with him Chavrusa in Halacha. And before he went to Leeds, he took smicha from Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, in order that he should have a better smicha. Because there's two smichas. You can go to yeshiva and have a smicha, but he wanted from a godel smicha, so he went to Moshe Feinstein to get smicha. And his shechita was so accepted that I remember someone made a chasna in Leeds, and everyone was saying, "Oh, wonderful! We can eat the shechita because it's Diane Refson." And as I said, he was a Talmud from Diane Refson, from Diane Affel, and that proves that what good Rebbe he was to all his Talmidim who are now future Dayanim. There was a new synagogue, which I remember, which was built especially for Chazan Solomon Stern, who was from Hungarian stock. He was originally a Chazan in Manchester, and they wanted to lure him to come to Leeds. So they told him, if you come to Leeds, we will make you a shul with a choir and give you a top salary. And they did that. And my grandfather one time was a choir boy in that choir. And then there was another shul, which is now turned into a dance hall. I don't remember what that's called, but it was opened in 1932. And it was a shared leadership of Rabbonim. There was the old Rabbi Horowitz, and then a new incumbent. And they said like this: in this shul, no more drushes in Yiddish. Because Rabbi Horowitz was a top sermon, he gave very good lectures, but he couldn't speak English. So they said, we'll let you, at the opening of the synagogue, speak in Yiddish, and that's it. And from now onwards, you will not be speaking anymore, and the new rabbi will speak. But that shul, I remember, was a beautiful shul with a blue dome on it, right at the beginning of Chapeltown. Yeah, I heard about him. That he started off as Reverend Gilbert, and he took smicha, and he became very highly involved in the community. First he was in the Chevra Kadisha, then he came and took other things, registered on the Beis Din, and meanwhile he built some up. Now he became a Dayan. I'll say my mother learnt with one of the Apfel brothers in after Cheder. They were at school, at the English school, but then they went to Cheder classes at the end, in the evening. And my mother, her name was Susan Ross. Her father had an optician in Roundhay, and she would go to this Cheder in the evenings together with one of the Apfel brothers. I'm not sure which one it was. I thought it was Freddie, but it can't, because my mother was born in 1942. That she remembers. And they were taught to read Hebrew, Baruch Atah, for some reason, not Baruch Atah. I don't know why, but that's what, until today, that's how my mother davens.
these things.
I did see a pilpul written from down Apfel when the Lubavitcher Rebbe turned 80 in 1982. So they went round in England to all the Rabbonim in England to write something, a pilpul for his birthday. And he wrote a pilpul. And at the beginning of it he writes, "Who am I and what am I compared to the great eagle, the Lubavitcher Rebbe?" That's how he writes, with his humility. He wrote a very nice pilpul, and then also I know he wrote the Sefer Yad Yosef, which is divided into 4 sections. And that he wrote just before he was nifta, about a year before. And it's only a drop in the ocean to what he possessed. I mean, I know he got a top tzmicha from the Rosh Shiva of Hildesheimer, who was Rabbi Chiel Weinberg, and it was on the whole 4 sections of Shulchan Aruch. Not like today, you say, "I got tzmicha," which is just on 1 section of Yoreh De'ah. He had it on all 4 sections. Gateshead was a place where the main thing was Torah. What did he want as a present? A sefer. Torah, very nice, but I could get a set of Mishnayos, set of Chumashim. That was the main thing. And what are you going to do after you finish school? Go to yeshiva. And when you finish, let's say, Gates Yeshiva, I want to go to Ponevezh, I want to go to Mir, and go to Koilo. That was our achievement, what we tried to strive for. Yeah, you have to learn secular in school, because in order to get on, but the main thing was, as I used to say, to try to become a Godel B'Torah. That was what was imbued in us in Gateshead. My father, so he, as I said, was born in Leeds in 1939, and his father said to him, "Right, when you're about 10, 11, you need to go to a high school." Well, there's a school in Gateshead opened up called Leeds Jewish boarding school, where you can sleep and stay overnight, and I want you to have a proper chinuch. So he sent my father and his brother to learn in this Jewish boarding school, and they continued afterwards to go to Gates Yeshiva, so you shouldn't be ignoramus. That was he wanted to be open to OBL, to open a Gemara, and the rest of it. So my father told me that during the war there wasn't much of a cheder, and he couldn't read when he was 6 years old. He couldn't read. Because it wasn't because of Leeds' fault, it was the war, the problem with the war. So my grandfather wanted he should have a proper education and be able to open a Gemara and learn. And many people from Leeds went there. I mean, I remember there was someone in Gateshead called Mankoff, and he was also originally from Leeds. And his brother David Mankoff was a shochet. He also went to Gateshead. And then there's someone there called Avraham Katz, and he's also from Leeds. Quite a few people. And then in Manchester, there's a lot of people. There was this fellow called Hill, who used to live in Leeds many years ago. And then there was Holder. There's someone called Holder, originally came from Leeds, and lives in Manchester. And I still remember in 1974, when I went to daven in Shomer Das, staying in my grandfather. So I went to shul there, in Dayan Refson shul. Well, he wasn't Rav there yet. He was Rabbi Goldberg. And so he said to me, "Shalom Aleichem, what's your name?" And there were older people, and I said, "Shlomo Weinstein." So he said, "We knew someone called Shlomo Weinstein." So I said, "Yeah, that was my grandfather." And I said, "Oh, he was a good friend of ours." That I remember, and it made me feel very welcome. My grandfather came over to England in 1922, way before the Second World War. And on my mother's side also, I say my mother's side, they came over in 1870. So on my mother's side, on a paternal side, 4 generations English. When Dayan Altfeld retired in 1978 from the United Synagogue, not from the Beis Din, he was offered twice to become chief rabbi of Amsterdam. And both times he refused it, because he loved the community of Leeds. And he stayed in the Beis Din. But I checked that fact out, and that's where he was offered, not Antwerp. No. There was someone else who was a Rav in Leeds called Rabbi Hilmer Dalia, and he left in 1965, I think, and he went to live in Antwerp. He became the Rav of Shomer Hadas. That's something else. Diane Affel was offered to go to Amsterdam. The way I look at it is that you have to know where we came from. And there are a lot of communities in the world, let's say Europe, which, what is Sands today? Nothing. Just maybe one or two Yidden there. There's just, the rest of the place is Polish peasants living there. So you have to know your roots, where you come from, and you should know there were big Kehillas, and now there is a koilel in Leeds apparently. It's back again, a koilel. And really, I think it's time that we should start moving out again, because London and Manchester are really full to capacity. There's nowhere to live. There's so much so that in London, people are moving out of London to live in Westcliff. I'm talking about Hasidic people are moving to Westcliff, and nearby Canvey Island, there's no more houses to buy. So I was thinking, why shouldn't we move into Leeds, which has a school, Menorah School, and there is facilities there. I would say like this, that somebody told me, he learnt there was a koilel before in Leeds, and he was in the car together with Diane Affel going somewhere. So Diane Affel said, "No, what did you learn today in the koilel?" And he was thinking for a minute. So in his Hasidic accent he says, "I'm Beis HaMedrash bli Chiddush." There's no Beis HaMedrash without innovation. You have to be, you learned today, there must be something. And so one of his children in the car asked him, "Dad, what did you say?" He explained to him what he was saying. So I was told that he was always into Chiddush or this, or it's always into his learning, and very active. And he was very active in many communal assets in the community. There's a room in Donisthorpe Hall in the old age home there, dedicated to him and his wife for their 50th anniversary.